Thank you very much. Welcome to all of you, Mr. President. Really honor for me to be here, and really impressed by the weather, actually. Yesterday was very bright, and today you give me a very impressive snow. So I think this is really designed by Iceland to provide a very good stage of discussing about geothermal. And also even more, because if you see and feel, even within this room, but everywhere, the lighting indoor and out, the elevator, even the climate control system that keeping us all warm is here thanks to the heat and power that lies beneath our feet. And the Minister has already mentioned quite a lot. Even this beautiful city, the capital city of Iceland, it's named Reykjavik, or Smoky Bay in English, which is named about 1,000 years ago by Ingólfur Arnarson, the settler. He noticed what he thought was smoke rising from the ground. In fact, it was steam rising from hot spring. A millennium later, we are still tapping this geothermal resource. That is what you call a truly renewable source of power. Iceland has known how to use these resources. This country has installed geothermal generation over 665 megawatt, or more than half of the whole European geothermal capacity. This is really a remarkable achievement for this country. Over 1/4 of Iceland's electricity comes from geothermal sources. 9 of 10 buildings are heated by waste heat from geothermal power plant. And I was actually enjoying yesterday to see the presentation that the change in terms of the composition of energy sources here is very remarkable for any country to have been done this in the past 3 decades, or even accelerated since 1970. So Iceland may be small in terms of population, but definitely this country is a geothermal giant in the world. So it has harnessed this power source more successfully than any country in the world, and its expertise is recognized around the world. Recently, the World Bank published the report, Turn Down the Heat, which provides a clear and shocking picture of the state of our planet in a 4 degrees Celsius warmer world, and the disruption impact on agriculture, water resources, ecosystem, and human health. The report concludes that while every region of the world will be affected, those least able to adapt, especially the poor and the most vulnerable, would be hit hardest. Iceland's geothermal achievements are a model which prove that geothermal energy has the potential to provide energy while limiting the emission of greenhouse gases. As a country, all over the world are stepping up to the climate challenge. Geothermal energy definitely needs to be part of this global response. Some may say, yes, but Iceland is unique, not only in terms of size, but also the location. That is true in many ways, but Iceland is not the only landmass with geothermal potential. About 40 countries in the world have geothermal resources large enough to meet much of their electric power needs. Many of them are in Latin America, East Africa, and Southeast Asia, where millions of population are still without access to electricity. The total is around 1.2 billion people without electricity access. As Minister mentioned, my own country, Indonesia, is estimated to have the greatest geothermal potential in the world, 27 gigawatts. And in Africa, Rift Valley, which cover 13 countries from Djibouti to Mozambique, geothermal resources could generate another 14 gigawatts. That is enough to deliver power to 150 million people. And that is matter a great deal on a continent where 2/3 of the people do not have access to electricity. Let me share you with one example in Kenya. I know many of you also know that Kenya is quite close to here, not only that many people has been trained, but also to get quite technical assistance. In Kola division, a hairdresser named Elizabeth Kialu and her assistant now use electric appliance powered by geothermal. Electric lighting allow her and her assistant to keep their salon open after dusk. This has meant more business for her, and it means she has enough money to send her kids to school. So access to energy from geothermal has the potential to transform the lives of people, just as I give you the example of Elizabeth's life and her family. So let's think about the energy challenges faced by the world's developing and emerging countries. Energy security, high prices for imported fossil fuel. I'm sure Iceland have this memory before 70s in which you are dominated by this fossil fuel. Many countries still struggling like that, still now. Meeting demand without increasing local pollution or worsening climate change. People without electricity or with unreliable supply. Then let us think about geothermal energy. It's reliable, it's local, it's clean, renewable energy. It's produced power that is available around the clock, every day of the week. Once developed, its operation cost is relatively low, and given its low carbon impact, it's more economical in the long run than fossil fuel. So if geothermal has such promise, why hasn't it been more widely exploited? To date, geothermal electricity capacity has reached only 11 gigawatts, only 0.3% of the total global power generation. In international awareness and financing, geothermal is the poor cousin among renewable. Geothermal suffers from some of the same barriers that constrain renewable energy development generally. High and upfront capital costs. As a finance minister, I really know about this constraint because I was the one who was asked to provide with a policy framework so that the potential geothermal in Indonesia can be developed. It's really hard. So that's why yesterday when I have a discussion with Minister, I asked him that maybe you need really not only invite and train the engineer and technical, you maybe have to invite a lot of Minister of Finance so that they understand about this geothermal. So I would like to have the President and Minister of Foreign Affairs to invite more Minister of Finance so that they understand the nature of this investment of geothermal. So geothermal projects have also an additional risky phase. The test drilling to prove the viability of steam field. This phase can cost 15 up to 25 million per field. And the worst part, and this is what really don't like by Minister of Finance, if a site proves to have no potential, this entire amount is just lost. And that's why risk is very, very important. So geothermal projects have long lead times from first exploration to commission of power plant and when it's first generate revenue. The risk, initial capital outlay, the long lead times, they all make geothermal projects a difficult financing proposition for the private sectors. So large-scale geothermal development needs public finance to get started. And that's why you need to convince Minister of Finance. I will tell you again and again. This support can be through preferential electric purchasing tariff, which is sometimes in many countries, the tariff is very fixed, sticky, and politically very sensitive to change. It can be through capital subsidies, or it can be direct support to identify new site. I know Iceland done this for decades. The government energy fund offered loans to developers to cover test drilling expenditure. And when drilling failed to yield result, the loans were converted to grant. So this is a very valuable lesson in which Iceland can provide not only financing, but most importantly, is actually the knowledge and experience in developing the right policy framework. This is what we call it a valuable development experience. And the World Bank, as what we call it, not only as financing development, but most importantly, in sharing knowledge and what we call it the science of delivery, this valuable policy framework and experience by Iceland is very, very important to be shared all over the world. Many countries like Kenya, Ethiopia, my own country, Indonesia, and Chile are seeking to expand the proportion of electricity supplied by geothermal power. But most developing countries cannot do this alone. They need international support. The World Bank Group is already helping. Our financing for geothermal has grown from only 73 million in 2007 to 336 million in 2012. It accounts for almost 10% of our total renewable energy lending. Our efforts are complemented by those of the Climate Investment Fund. Many other international institutions are doing the same as our bilateral aid agencies. One such initiative is mentioned by Minister, the Geothermal Compact undertaken by Iceland and the World Bank. The compacts help geothermal exploration with support for surface study in the country around Africa's Rift Valley, as well as technical assistance and capacity development. The Icelandic International Development Aid, or agency, is the lead implementing agency with financing from the Nordic Development Fund and the government of Iceland. This partnership supports surface studies in 5 countries with geothermal potential: Tanzania, Burundi, Rwanda, Uganda, and Ethiopia. Zambia is expected to join soon. We can build on the achievement of this and similar initiative, but what we need now is a concerted international effort to scale up geothermal power across the developing world. This effort should focus on the key hurdle, that is the test drilling phase. That is why I'm pleased to announce today that the World Bank is launching a global geothermal development plan. Our goal is to mobilize 500 million in concessional finance from bilateral and multilateral partners for about a dozen test drilling investments around the world, where studies show likely strong potential. Why have a global investment plan? I will give at least 3 reasons. First, a global initiative is a scale-up. It will make geothermal plants bigger and more predictable. This will expand the market. It will make it easier for geothermal companies to identify projects and finance them. Second, it will build a global community of practice that encourages learning about geothermal development. That's been missing until now. More knowledge will improve the management of test drilling and increase the success rate. And third, given the resource needed to bridge the test drilling gap, a global initiative offers the possibility of increased financing. It could be transformational. The Global Geothermal Development Plan is an important part of our engagement in the Sustainable Energy for All initiative, led by United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon and our World Bank President Jim Yong Kim. Two of its goals are achieving universal access to modern energy services and doubling the world proportion of renewable energy to be accomplished by 2030. Geothermal energy mobilized by the GGDP, that is Global Geothermal Development Plan, will be a major step toward both. And the World Bank Energy Sector Management Assistance Program, or SMAP, is preparing this plan with our partners. We are discussing it with also potential donors. We are identifying projects to be funded to move from commitment to action. We will convene a donor meeting later this year. Collaboration will be at the heart of this plan. To be successful, everyone will need to play their part. Government, bilaterals agency, multilaterals, lenders, and of course, the private sectors. The World Bank Group is ready and looking forward to joining with its partner in this important initiative. And of course, we look to Iceland with its long-standing experience and remarkable achievement and unparalleled expertise in geothermal energy, continuing to play a leadership role. I thank you.